I can surround myself with people that are better than me at something, then it's going to heighten my abilities, right? It's going to take me up a notch. My grandfather used to tell me, if you are the smartest one in the room, find a new room. All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we go. We are live. I have with me, and I'm about to bring in a very special guest, somebody that I've been following for a while. We connected through a coaching network that really coaches other people how to become better versions of themselves. So I have somebody with me right now that I am excited to bring on, Miss Nicole Guberman. Thank you so much for showing up to the Provoke Coach podcast.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here.
Absolutely. Well, look, I know that I always start these off with, hey, I have somebody that's awesome and I'm excited because I've been following you. I know where you stand. I know where you come from. I know, what it is that you do and you provide to this world, but other people that may be listening either now or in the future, they don't know who you are, or maybe this is the first time that they've ever really embraced what you have to offer. Tell us, who is Nicole?
Love the question. Isn't it so fascinating to get on and start talking about yourself?
Right.
You can go in a million different
Here's
directions.
your chance, right?
And this is what I help women do.
Yes.
It's an amazing thing to be helping women in the way that I am. So you could call me in the most fundamental form a self-love sorceress,
Right.
or a fear extinguisher, from a broad place where everyone can make their own interpretation of what that is.
Right.
I help women release the fear and the negative emotions and limiting beliefs that get in the way of their success, that get in the way of their potential, that prevent them from being who they are really meant to be authentically, and from a place of real self-love, true self-love. I'm so happy to be doing what I'm doing.
Let's explain what that is. Is that in business? Is that in their personal lives? What really does that represent? Or is it both?
It's both, and it's very interesting to notice that if something's happening professionally, if something's off professionally, it's gonna affect you in your personal life and vice versa.
Right.
So, we can't really separate the different areas of life. Have you ever drawn that wheel of life with the different
Yeah.
sections, fitness, health,
Yeah.
and then you draw the lines to connect them, and sometimes they're all out of whack, and then sometimes it's really like a nice circle. And we all have our own individual places to improve.
Exactly.
What I love doing is allowing a woman, anyone really, to be able to integrate themselves from a personal and professional standpoint so that when they're expressing themselves, they show up truly as them all the time. They're not having to put on certain hats
Mm.
or masks. They're taking off a mask and feeling confident about who they are and self-assured and bold without that worry, without, "Oh, people are gonna think about me," and these kinds of things.
All right, so I got a couple questions for you then.
Sure.
All right, so that now that you bring that up, because I think that is a super common thing that both men and women have, both professionally and not professionally, is wearing that different hat and being and showing up as that person or that identity. Where does that come from? Because I have to be a father, I have to be a husband, I have to be a business owner, an entrepreneur, I have to be a coach. There's these different hats I think that we try to wear. What is that? Why is that a challenge?
We all have thoughts and feelings about what each identity means to us, right?
Mm,
When you think about being a father, what comes up inside of you? What images come up? What feelings come up? What thoughts come up? What did people in your life tell you about what it means to be a father? And then you make meaning out of that, and then you get to decide, who do I need to be? Who do I want to be?
right.
Right? And how does that identity fit in with what it means to be a husband, what it means to be a coach? And then learning to integrate all of those identities so that we're feeling what I call congruent, which is a very important word in the field of NLP, congruent,
Yeah.
where you're acting from a place of center, it feels authentic, it feels true, you're in your power. Does that make sense?
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. Well, and I think that for me, it's really been the last probably 5 years that those things linked, right? Because fresh out of college, you have this picture of the white picket fence. I have to get married. I have to have children. I have to buy things. I have to do it. And I was just talking about this just the other day with a gentleman. It's like you have this image of what that identity is supposed to look like. And then you wake up 20 years later, in my case, to where I'm like, oh my gosh, like this isn't what I want to do. So that congruency. Now, do you find that people are able to wear these hats and wear them well and go back and forth in between these identities? Is that even possible?
I think it really depends on the person.
Okay.
We all have our own journey, and some people are more successful at it than others,
Yeah.
but it really comes down to what specific challenges are they dealing with,
Yeah.
and how is it preventing them from getting where they wanna go, and then we really narrow our focus into dealing with those specific issues
Right.
and working to resolve them so that they continue to soar in their
Yeah.
life. It's just fabulous to be able to get up in the morning and know what your mission is.
Yeah.
If people don't know what their mission is, that's gonna really bog them down on a daily basis.
Yeah.
If you're working at a job and you're not really enthralled with that mission,
Mhm.
or you're working for a company and you're required to speak for them, and you have to mold yourself to the company's mission, and you almost feel like you can't speak authentically, so how do you fit yourself into the company?
Mm.
From a place of authenticity that you feel good about, where
Yeah.
you're not having to live up to expectations, or you're creating this pressure, this self-created pressure, and this anxiety starts to form, and then you have to live up to the expectations of what people believe you to be capable of. I have a very unique perspective when it comes to that, coming from a performance background, and learning how to use my mind to my advantage to really
Yeah.
develop that mental toughness, and I think that specific skill is really missing for a lot of people, and they're struggling with how to present themselves based upon other experiences that may have been toxic, that may have been negative. You don't wanna be on this hamster wheel dealing with the same problem over and over and over and kind of solving the problem, kind of getting the help, you really want to solve the problem. And what does it mean to you if you're like, I'm on the fence, I don't really want to commit? What's that about?
Right.
And that's what we do, right? That's what we love to talk about.
I guess in the world that we live in right now, what do you think some of the biggest challenges with that are? Because I see that a lot going on, especially since the pandemic, is that I don't know about any other parents out there, but I became the principal, I became the math teacher, I became the English teacher, like at a time in my daughter's age to where dad was not really needed for that. Like that's not what my job role was, right? So I was further and further away from that dad identity and that dad role with those dad actions. And it was real tough for me at the beginning. Now, look, we've evolved since then and we've gotten better. And it was a big wake up call for all of us, parents and all the teachers and everything out there. How has that part affected your work and your clients and the people that you're coming into contact with on a regular?
That's a great question. The kind of work that I do, we're really integrating the mind, the voice, and the body
Right.
to function as a whole integrated piece, a
Mhm.
whole. Let's say you're having trouble speaking up at the dinner table. There's issues going on either between a husband and a wife or parents and the children, and there's conflict going on and you can't quite express yourself, or somebody's taking over the energy, someone's taking up the space.
Mhm.
How do you, with all the chaos going on in the world today, how do you learn how to voice your needs or your feelings without exploding
Right.
or without minimizing and going into this shell,
Mm.
right? How do you find a healthy balance that's rational where you feel like you can really speak up?
Yeah.
So that's the kind of work that I do. It's really completely
Yeah.
related,
Yeah.
right?
Because I think how you react to things is the huge thing. It doesn't matter the story or the conversation, because you're right. I mean, at the dinner table, you could lose it. It could be a discipline problem. Like I have an 11-year-old. She mouths off sometimes. She's a lot like her dad, unfortunately, in that regard. I've been there, done that. But you're right, like controlling that knee-jerk reaction. How am I going to turn this into a positive? There's all sorts of things that you react to in that regards. Now, why do people just not have that connection with their emotion, or is it that their brain shuts off? Because I know that's a part of it too.
It's a combination,
Yeah.
yeah. The reactivity, the level of reactivity
Yep.
can differ from person to person. Some people have had to learn how to become less reactive.
Right. Right.
You know, I was one of those people
Yeah.
to not take things so personally, that
Yeah.
knee-jerk reaction, or to notice when this doesn't feel right and I really don't feel good about it, but I'm not going to let my emotions take me over by
Mm.
doing XYZ. What I help women do is working through those XYZ solutions so that they feel in control of themselves, that they're in the driver's seat. Not only when it just comes to interacting with family and friends, but in the boardroom, when you have
Right.
to go up and speak at the podium, when you have to get up on Zoom and speak.
Well,
So many different environments.
let's talk about that for a second. Not even just Zoom, because I think people are now starting to get used to being on video and all that kind of stuff. But I've always been used to it. It's fun. Like turn the camera on, let's roll. But a lot of people were very timid of this, and it was very hard for them to be able to grasp. But also in the boardroom, we all know that public speaking is a huge fear. My daughter and I were speaking about this the other day. She's like, Dad, I just hate to read in front of the class. And I was like, well, that's common. That's normal. Like, nope, nobody loves to do that. She goes, yeah, but you like to talk in front of people. And I'm like, yeah, but it's because I failed a bunch prior to getting there to where it doesn't bother dad anymore. My confidence is there. I was like, it takes time. People have a hard time with that, and people have a tough time with that. I have another question after you answer this.
Sure.
Sorry, I'm just full of them today.
Great.
But how do people overcome that? What is your best piece of advice for overcoming fear of public speaking?
That's a great question. When we have a fear like that, that's related to a social issue, we're getting up in front of others, we're going to be perceived, we may be rejected, People may be projecting their own feelings and thoughts onto you. It comes down to this element of rejection.
Yeah.
What's gonna happen if I'm rejected? Because eons ago, survival was about being able to coexist in a tribe, and bad things happened
Right.
if you didn't fit in with the tribe. People create this pressure, like, "I have to deliver," or, "I have to do the best job I can, otherwise XYZ is gonna happen. What is my boss gonna think?" A person's internal world can often be very different from how they're perceived from the outside. "Oh, you didn't seem nervous at all. I had no
Yeah.
idea." And yet we're thinking, "Oh my god, if you only
Yeah.
knew,
Yeah.
if you
Thought I was
only
having a
knew."
heart attack, but yeah.
Right.
Right.
And so the ways we would address this is we really have to come to understand what's the root cause. We have to discover it, what's the root cause of the fear, and then we have to work together to release it. And there are many ways of doing this. Often people go to therapy for it. I'm a hypnotherapist, so
Right.
we work with the unconscious.
Yes.
And everybody has their own specific needs when it comes to working through their problems. So
Yep.
I like to do it from an alternative place. My family is deeply rooted in the field of psychotherapy.
Yeah.
And I just said to myself, you know what? I love what they do, but I got to do my own thing too. There are other reasons for that also with my
Yeah.
family in particular. But I felt that, like I've said in previous podcasts, it was a no-brainer for me
Yeah.
because I had that inside, and then I could really develop it and use my voice in a
Yeah.
different way. That element of speaking and
Well,
speaking to
let's
the
talk about that.
unconscious.
I've learned a great deal about, meditation, self-talk, Napoleon Hill, and going back to the laws of attraction and vibrations and the science behind everything. When you're talking about meditation, and I know you do guided meditation, I've listened to you. It's awesome. I mean, you just have one of those voices that is soothing enough to be able to put you into a place. But I think you said it before, it's controlling yourself, and it's controlling those emotions, and it's bringing yourself down. Like, for me, I know that I've spoken in front of, hundreds of people, thousands even, and it's earth shattering and it racks your brain. I know physically what's going on. My heart rate, I'm looking at my watch, I'm going, oh my gosh, I'm in the target heart rate zone right now. And I'm standing here, I'm sweating, palms are sweating, right? Arms weak, knees are heavy. No point intended. But, you
Right.
know, what I guess is so, not just giving yourself a positive pep talk, but really controlling your voice and controlling your breath, controlling your breathing, controlling your mind. What is that?
When I'm doing that, you mean?
Yes. Well, not only when you're doing it, but you obviously you're doing guided meditations. You're helping people throughout the entire process. But what is so powerful about that? Like, what is the gig for people that don't do it and they have no clue what we're even talking about right now? What
Sure.
is
Yeah. I wanna just go a couple steps back to say something about what you previously said. The control. What is control? I wanna actually reframe that to centering.
yeah.
We're centering,
Mm,
right? With meditation or offering guided audio meditation hypnosis. All hypnosis is self-hypnosis. So even though I'm guiding you through a recording that's either meditation or hypnotherapy,
yeah.
the person is always in control. So I'm not doing anything to anyone or waving a magic wand, even though I love the concept of the fairy godmother and I identify with it a lot.
Right.
But you're waving the magic wand upon yourself,
Yeah.
really, right? And I love that image because we get in touch with our own magic, our own positive internal resources. And that's what it's all about. So these recordings are a way of allowing yourself to come back to what that is.
Yes.
Letting go of all the things going on in the outside world, all the chaos, all the craziness, to
Yeah.
come back to the present moment, be in your own presence, be with yourself, with all the gunk and the junk and the mind trash,
Yeah.
and not beating yourself up for it
Yes.
and saying, "Okay, this is here. This is what I'm dealing with right now." Instead of pushing against it and trying to say, stop feeling this way, or why are you feeling like this, or you
Right.
know better than that, or you've done this, this, and this. I can't believe that you're
Why is
still
it so much
struggling with this. All the criticisms, the internal
Yeah.
criticism, or
Why is
the
that so much easier though, Nicole? In your professional opinion, of course, why is it so much easier to be a pessimist? Why is it so much easier to lose your shit or to be in a bad mood? Like I know, like I can tell. Like if I wake up, maybe I didn't get enough sleep, maybe I had something weighing on my mind, whatever the case is. I mean, scientifically, I know as soon as I wake up, like, uh-oh, you're in a bad mood. Like you need to fix this. Like you need to, like you need to do something right now. And hey guys, going for a run. I mean, anything to really get me out of that zone. Why is it so
right.
easy to fall there versus actually doing the right thing and getting to the right place centered wise?
I was just having a conversation with another gentleman on a podcast that we have this negativity bias. There's various numbers that are thrown around between 50,000 to 80,000 thoughts a day, and often the majority of them are negative.
Wow.
And unless we're conditioning the subconscious mind to
Mhm.
work for us, we're automatically going to go to that negative thought. On a completely different level, generally, I've always been a night owl. So if
Yeah.
I get up in the morning and it's early, I'm not gonna be in a good mood either. And so I've actually had to shift my own thinking to be like, "Okay, I am a morning person now." And that identity of what is a morning person? What do they do? How do they act? Who do they need to be to get what they want? It's common for people who are like us, who love to interact and help others grow. We have activity that often is at its peak at night, or we have energy levels that peak at night.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we're gonna feel kinda cranky in the morning. That's a
Right.
totally other way of looking at it. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
It
100%. Well, and I think, like you said, like when you're talking about being centered, it kind of goes a couple steps back when you were talking about women in the boardroom or anybody in the boardroom for that matter that has to get up and be able to speak. You said something. What kind of shield or what kind of armor, what kind of persona do I have to put on for the company? Because that's a big thing too, is that distinguishing between like I used to have like what I called corporate Clinton, right? And then just me, right? To where I could say whatever I wanted and I wouldn't have to worry about HR or here, how do I phrase this to where I'm not going to get in trouble and not just say exactly what I mean. So I had to come up with creative ways to get my point across, to not be such a jerk, right?
and it made you a better communicator.
It
It
did,
it made
but
you a better entrepreneur because you
right.
had to reframe, you had to shift your thinking. So
Yeah,
that's a great thing that happened, even though it's probably a struggle at the
sure.
time, because it's like,
Yeah,
"Ah, I have to be put in this box." I know what it's like to feel like you have to put yourself into a box. What if I don't fit into a box?
right.
Now what? Rather than seeing all the problems with it, what's the not problem?
Yeah,
And going back to what we were saying before, the waking up in the morning and the negative, focusing on gratitude, that's the magic of change.
yeah,
And even I still work on it
yeah,
because it's a skill that has to constantly be honed even as things get more challenging. Then we have to keep focusing on it, and then we condition it. It becomes a
yeah,
skill, right? Writing in the morning or doing exercises, looking at yourself in the mirror and connecting with yourself,
yeah,
whether it's that or seeing faces on the TV or listening to things. Especially in business, it can be very isolating, and so then to find that connection is so
yeah,
important.
yeah. I mean, that's so powerful what you're doing. I mean, because you're giving, people
A voice.
yeah,
Of
yeah, a voice of their true authentic self. Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing is that I've watched a lot of people grow. I'm sure you have as well over the years, whether they're our clients or not. We've maybe even seen them throughout the years on other lights. It doesn't matter, but we've seen people grow. And the cool parts about that is that we oftentimes see authenticity rising to the top and you wonder like wow was that person always like that? Well yeah, they were just maybe buried in all these hats that they were wearing, right, to not really be their true selves in a lot of
or they didn't have the support that they needed in order to flourish. That's a very common issue. Or
Yeah.
they had people who helped them along the way, but they didn't quite take off, and they needed specific help that they either couldn't find or they couldn't connect with someone in particular. For me, that was the case. I really needed to handpick who I was working with and put my trust in people even when it was scary as heck.
Oh yeah, of
That
course.
you have to listen to your intuition and say, "Is this person meant to be on my path? Yes or no?"
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly. And being able to make that decision gives you, I mean, it does give you ultimate empowerment in your future and in your present, right? And in the things that mean the most to you. Now, where do you see all of this, Nicole, for you, like in the future? Where are you thinking that all this is going? Are there other things that you're wanting to add to your practice right now?
Tons of things.
Yeah.
One of the things about myself is that I've always been more of a future thinker, that I can see everything into the future, and then I gotta look at what's right in front of my face. What do I
Right.
have to deal with right now?
Right.
Because I love all the possibilities.
Yeah.
That's what makes me fun to work with because I'm
Yeah.
always pushing the envelope. Well, I did this and now what? What's next? What else?
Exactly.
I get a lot of excitement from that. I always have lots of ideas. I'd love to be speaking more.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of performing in my life
Yeah.
from the standpoint of opera, and I decided to step back and work with people from a place of healing because I felt that's what the world needed,
Yeah.
especially within the last several years. It was always a part of me, but I was called to go farther with it.
Yeah.
Having shifted gears and having done a lot of performing, I feel like the next step for me is to continue speaking and
Yeah.
reaching audiences. I'll be speaking at a conference in May
Nice.
through STAR conferences, in particular for a Women's Empowerment and Leadership Summit, which I'm very excited about.
Wow.
It's going to be virtual unless I decide to bite the bullet and go to Toronto. We'll
Yeah.
see. Uh, with everything going on, I'm not sure,
Yeah,
but
that could be challenging.
yeah,
That could be
and
challenging.
in the future, I'd love to continue speaking with them. They have all kinds of genres of conference. There's a hypnosis conference, there's
Oh, wow.
a psychology conference. There's so many. I just love what they're doing and the people that they're allowing to be heard and that they're championing. I think it's really wonderful.
I
Yeah.
feel like it's kind of cheating though for you because you teach people how to do this, right?
It's always been important to me to be the model
Yeah.
because I had great models.
Yeah.
Sometimes I didn't, but overall, I chose great models.
Yeah.
And it's important to me to also be a great model. It doesn't mean I'm perfect, and I don't expect people to be perfect at all, but we
Right.
have to decide our own definition of perfection, right?
So when you are going to get up and speak in front of, hundreds, thousands of people, who knows the size, what kind of advice would you have for somebody that is ramping up to something like that? And I guess in their world, it may not be speaking in front of hundreds or thousands of people, but it may be chiming in on a Zoom call. It may be finally, when they do get their voice, right, stepping up and having that conversation. What advice would you have for them? We're talking about speaking now, and you're going to be getting on stage. So I'd imagine you're
Yeah.
trying to learn your own philosophies over again. I know I do that because you want to be able to lead from the front. What advice would you have?
Leading from the front, I love that.
Yeah.
One of the things I work on with women is helping them to understand and harness their aggression or their assertiveness, and
Ah,
using that feeling and channeling it into how they speak. So
mm,
I won't talk about it now, but that's one thing
yeah.
in particular that is very integral to the process of change and transformation.
Mm,
If a woman or whoever, I generally work with women,
right.
but if they've grown up in an environment where they weren't allowed to be loud or they weren't allowed to speak up or they were constantly being shamed or people took up a lot of space, so they didn't have a lot of space to express themselves,
Mm,
they're gonna be a little timid. And I was a shy kid. Often performers grow up originally being shy,
yeah.
and so there's nothing wrong with that. But because I was shy and because there were dynamics going on in my family, I had to learn how to push past that, of
Mm,
how to overcome it. And
yeah.
opera was a great way of doing that because you have to learn how to be loud.
Right.
When you're becoming larger than life in that way, using your assertiveness, using your aggression, it's not like I'm on camera here screaming at you.
Right.
Not at all. but
right.
I'm doing certain things
How do
internally
you, so
to help me.
how do you control your voice then? Because I'll be honest with you, like for me, I have a hard time with that because when I was in corporate America, I was always on the phone. I was always doing conference calls. I was always performing. And just like you just got done saying, you had to be loud for many years, right? And I guess we'll get into that in a minute. But then on the flip side, you're doing guided meditation, and I've heard your guided meditation. Like, I mean, it's powerful, but a soothing, soft voice, enough control to get people to where they need to be, right? So,
Yes,
so that's a lot of range.
it is, and I didn't always know that it was there. It happened organically. It
Okay,
happened organically, and it was really exciting for me because I was like, "Ooh, well, 1, I love talking into a mic,"
right,
and, partially that was created through external things like the pandemic. How do I express myself in another way? And
right,
I was also very old school in the sense that I didn't really wanna perform opera on a screen. I trained for years and years and years to fill a hall or fill a theater. So to suddenly have to get up or adjust, I was like, "Nope."
yeah,
And a lot of people had that reaction, and some people were very adaptable. I had to say to myself, "Does this feel congruent to you?"
right,
And then make the adjustments, knowing that eventually someday I would be going back to live performing, but
yeah,
not really attaching myself to the outcome.
yeah,
Just staying committed to my own journey
yeah,
and trusting that when it's meant to return, it'll return, and just focus on committing to what needs to be done now. And in terms of recording, that was a creative outlet in itself that I realized that I just loved. I also produce the tracks themselves, so I choose music,
right,
I handle the timing, all that. I don't know if I'll do that on the long term, but
right,
for right now, I'm working on different things, and it's another creative outlet for me that when I'm not working with clients or I'm not doing other things, I can
right,
express myself in that way, not only for others, of course, that's the whole point, but
yeah,
it's for me to get back in touch with myself, and it's
yeah.
just me and the mic and my headphones,
Well,
and,
and I guess
it's a really calming experience.
let me ask you this. I mean, was it, I guess for you, because that's such a huge difference for me to be able to grasp is how is that different? How is doing hypnosis and guided meditation and controlling your voice in a way and not, I don't want to say manipulating it in a way, but in a way you are using, because I can, and people are going to have to go and just listen to it. I have it on Insight Timer, which is my meditation go to, right? But you have an assertiveness to your voice that you just said a little while ago that I heard. And I'm like, damn, she's right. Because I listened to, and I didn't even know it was you for a second. I'm like, wait a minute, I don't understand. Like, I didn't know that she did this. Like, I'm confused. I thought she sang opera. I was like, this can't be right.
I do more than one thing,
I know you do. I
and
know
I
you.
champion other people to feel good about doing more than one thing.
Yes, and that
Yeah.
and it's fantastic. I think it's just an unbelievable ability for you to have that. Now, I can pick up that assertiveness is definitely probably in your opera as well. I would
Yes.
imagine but what is the difference in feeling? Because in opera, you don't have the same feeling as your guided meditation. Not for me, anyways. I mean, some of the notes that are hit and some of the power that comes, it hits you in the heart, right? Like
Mhm, mhm.
there's some very powerful things. With
Right.
meditation, I feel that same feeling, but as like you said, more centered, more,
Yeah.
intuitive.
Both exist from a place of center,
Yeah,
I believe, and intuition. We're trusting ourselves in the moment.
yeah,
When it comes to making a recording like that, it's different because I'm not focused on performing a character, or I'm not focused on what I'm doing technically from a vocal technique standpoint.
got it.
In opera, you're always negotiating the 2 to a
Right.
point where you eventually stop thinking about what you're doing technically, and you're really focusing on the character and diving into that world of who is this person that I'm portraying. That's the
Mhm.
beauty of it. There's so many different elements in opera,
Yeah.
and that journey really allowed me to become very adaptive in the moment
Mm.
and just adjust constantly, to be adaptive and to sense what's going on with others individually,
Yeah.
but also listen to myself, like, "Okay, what does my body need right now? How's my voice doing?" Almost to a fault, and then to step back and be like, "Okay, this is what I got going on today. It is what it is," and then for the recordings, and even for singing too, it's not about me, right? It's not about me, but it is about me. So how do I
Right.
negotiate the 2? And we were just talking right before we got on. It's all about me,
Yeah.
on this particular episode. Not
Yeah.
really, but let's say theoretically, it's all about me. I help people learn how to really enjoy what it means to have things be all about them,
Yeah.
rather than being like, "Oh god, I'm gonna look so narcissistic. Oh,
Right. Right.
what are people gonna think?" I had to go through that journey and really learn that it wasn't such a terrible thing to come across as confident,
Yeah.
right? Because you need to feel confident in life to get where you need to go.
Yeah.
If you don't have that confidence, you're limiting yourself on so many different levels, and you're preventing yourself from being happy.
Yeah.
So I had to learn how to view myself differently. When I'm making these recordings, I'm thinking about the people that I'm impacting. I'm thinking about, where am I taking them on this journey? What is the intention of this track?
Yeah.
How do I want them to feel by the time they've finished?
Yeah.
What do I want to feel by the time I finish this project? I'm very meticulous and I love to get things perfect.
Right.
That's my own perfectionism, because I want the experience to be at the maximum for
Yeah.
me and for others. I hope that clarifies it a
Yeah.
bit.
I think it did, because I think that with, you kind of said it. It's interesting with opera, you get into the story and you get into the character and you get into the technique. Now, of course, you're going to be meticulous because you already know all those things. Like, you're highly trained, so you're trained to, when you're performing, such as you are, you're just doing a different type of performance. But it sounds like your authentic self is more involved in your feeling of the outcome,
Right, you
more
almost feel kind of
involved.
naked.
Yeah,
It's just me and the voice, me,
right,
myself, and I, and
right.
in a way that's very liberating,
Yeah,
especially it's such an intimate experience, because I'm talking into the mic, and everything that I say is going to be interpreted by someone, and I'm going into their internal world. So I better be 100% all in with that. Otherwise,
yeah,
oh crap, I didn't do my job,
right.
right? And this is my mission in life. You got to be 100% committed to your mission.
You said you wanted to speak again, but you also kind of touched on you'll perform again.
I think so. It's just a
Yeah,
matter of when, and other life elements. It's still a question mark. I miss it often. I'm so busy these days that I find it a challenge to be singing. I often will just bust it out randomly sometimes, like, "Ah, I just needed to get that out." But I do miss it very much. I miss seeing my teacher a lot.
oh, I bet.
Andrea, if you're listening, I love you and I miss you.
And it's so fantastic because it just takes so much skill to do that type of, the notes that you're able to hit, and the control over your voice and the power coming from your voice. I've learned a lot from breathing exercises and meditation and in speaking. And for me, for years, I held my breath. I wasn't fully breathing. I wasn't fully using my diaphragm. I also talk very loud, and I have to control my breath and make sure that I'm not belting things out. It still boggles my mind that you can control yourself, coming from being trained to be able to do that, and then going way, way down to these just, you know,
Yeah.
minuscule decibels for
It's a
that.
creative act in itself, and all the
Yeah.
musical aspects
Yeah.
transfer very naturally,
Yeah.
I think, to because in many ways you could see these kinds of recordings as voiceover
Yeah.
kinds of experiences.
Yeah.
I always had an interest in that too, but I think my natural inclination to wanna help people served itself more directly into making these kinds of recordings.
Yeah.
Maybe someday I'll play more with voiceover, but I can only do so many things.
Right? Yeah, there's only so many hours in the day. Well, look, I want to see where it came from. I mean, we alluded a little bit about where you came from, but can you just tell everybody where did this all begin? Where did you grow up? How did you get
Sure.
to this place right now?
Great, of course. So, I was born in the city, in New York City originally. I
Mhm.
grew up most of my life in New Jersey, and I've been back in the city about 7 years now. I had a little bit of time living in Seattle. I was doing an artist diploma out there. Got to experience the other side of the country, which was
Nice.
awesome. When I was young, I liked to be creative. I often explored things on my own. I loved to read. I got interested in theater and band
Hmm.
in middle school, and I found it was a way to express myself. I was very studious, and good girl, and the nice girl,
Right.
and I wasn't really rebellious in the traditional sense of the word,
Yeah.
but being in performance environments was my own way of breaking the mold, going outside of the box,
Yeah.
being bold, being different. Along the way, I had my own challenges in that sense, but it was a way to become larger than life
Yeah.
and keep the drama on the stage and not in my personal life. I had those kinds of musical experiences and theatrical experiences, and
Awesome.
I just loved the process of creation, and I loved the experience of being in rehearsal and bringing something very small into this finished product of a
Yeah.
performance and all the teamwork that's involved in that. Also, the individual work that you do on your own and that you share with a group of people to create a bigger whole. That was always really exciting to me. Originally, I thought I was going to be a choral conductor for high school students
Nope.
because I loved choir for a long time in high school. That idea, that fantasy quickly changed to being more interested in voice because I just loved the process of discovering my own voice
Ah,
and going inward and pushing myself and pushing the limits of my own human capacity
right.
to go beyond what we think is possible. I always pushed myself in that way, almost too much, and then had to reel it in. So I can really understand when people have these perfectionistic tendencies and how it gets in the way of their ultimate outcome,
Yeah.
and really act as a sounding board and a source of support to be able to work through that for their own journey.
Yeah.
I have a lot of education coursework underneath me when it comes to music education. I taught voice privately for many years,
Oh, wow.
voice instruction and a little bit of beginning piano as well,
Oh,
and
wow.
I loved that one-on-one dynamic of helping someone grow, and often the study of voice is very therapeutic in itself.
Yeah.
Over time, I would have students say to me, "Oh, I'm really enjoying this. I kinda just wanna talk to you." And I was like, "Wow, that's really fantastic." So it didn't surprise me because of my family background,
Right.
and I said to myself, "How do I make something more of this? How can I serve differently and even bigger and expand myself while keeping other parts of myself active?" I really became passionate about coaching and worked on myself more personally and
Yeah.
have slowly been integrating all of these parts of myself. And so now I just love how everything has come together because it feels authentic. It feels
Right.
like I'm using all my skills, that I'm not trying to put myself in my own little box, but still being very specific about the problems that I solve.
Yeah. And being able to use your talents, right? Because I think that's a huge thing that people they forget about, I think, over the years, right? When they put themselves in that box, that they might forget about everything else. They
Mhm.
might get that job or they may get that career or they may get that position and then they fit into the box. And it's like everything else that was a part of their life gets put on the back burner, like music, like art, like talents that people have that are out there that they're just not using. And it's so awesome that you were able to integrate,
Yeah.
things
I
that
had
you
my
did.
own journey. It's
Yeah.
been a journey. It hasn't been perfect, and it hasn't been all sunshine and rainbows,
Sure.
But
Yeah.
I did what I needed to do, faced those difficult emotions, and told myself that things are going to be temporarily like this. It doesn't mean it's like this forever.
Right.
But if I'm really struggling in one specific area, I better do my best to get the help I need.
Yeah.
And now is the time to reach out to people who you feel can help you. Everyone needs help in their own individual way, and there is nothing
Why
wrong
don't people
with
reach
it.
out? You know,
Yeah.
in your opinion, you've been working with a lot of people. You've helped out a lot of people in a lot of different areas, right, of their lives and even business and performance. Why don't people reach out? Why don't people ask for help?
It's a great question. What I feel it comes down to is the pain of actually changing. They feel the pain of actually changing is going to be harder than actually changing,
Yeah. Yep.
right? So rather than feel that pain of making a transformation, it's gonna be easier. They're not thinking of this consciously, but subconsciously,
Yep.
if I just stay where I am, I'll figure it out somehow and it'll take me longer, but I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Where if they had someone in their corner in their life to accelerate that process,
Mm,
and get them where they need to be,
right.
then they would have to confront that fear that we all have
Yeah.
of, "What if I deal with this right now? Oh my gosh, who am I gonna be after that?
Right.
Someone
Right.
completely new, and I'm gonna love that person,
Yeah.
and they're gonna be totally unfamiliar, but wow, if they know what's good for them, they're gonna go after it."
Right.
Right?
Right. It's always that first step that people have the hardest time with. And I guess for you and what you've learned with controlling leading up to it, because a lot of what you do is a lot about anxiety, it's a lot about fear, it's a lot about the what ifs, and it's a lot about who's going to criticize me, what are they going to think, what's going to happen, how am I going to feel after that. In your opinion, what advice do you have for people out there that they maybe have a tough time with this? Because I got to believe that we weren't the only ones that has had a hard time with this, and we're
Right.
not going to be the last, right?
Right. Well, I would absolutely say come and get in touch with me. I would love to be a part of your journey and help
Yeah.
you soar in expressing yourself and overcoming these conflicts, these internal blockages,
Yeah.
these things holding you back. And if you notice that perhaps maybe you're in therapy, if you notice you're not getting results, but you are feeling that the therapeutic relationship is helpful to you, that doesn't mean you have to abandon therapy. I would never tell that to somebody, ever.
Exactly.
We can solve problems in a multitude of ways. What I often see is that people have been in therapy, but they haven't gotten the results that they really, really want.
Hmm.
So they'll seek another approach that's
Hmm.
alternative, like what I do. I would really limit the reading of books and the Googling online and the watching the YouTubes. I love YouTube, there's so much to be gained, but after a while, you're only gonna get so much from free advice,
Yeah.
right? So you have to really honor and trust yourself in taking the investment in yourself, of making the investment in yourself
Yes.
to get you where you wanna be, because you only have one life to live.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm getting all preachy here, but you
Right.
only have one life to
Yeah.
live. So if you're not happy, if you're not feeling excited about what you're doing, if you're struggling, then reach out and get the support you need, and I'm thrilled to be that person for you.
And where can people find you? I know that I have all your handles, but where's the fastest way that people can reach out to you?
Great. Yeah, absolutely. You can email me directly at nicole@trueselflove.club. My website is www.trueselflove.club. My social media handle is the @ Nicole.trueselflove. You can reach me in many different ways. Socially, I'm on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and I'm starting to build my TikTok channel.
Yeah.
Boy, have I
Awesome.
had to work through my own beliefs about TikTok. I'm really enjoying it. I feel like a little bit of an oldie
Right.
going on
Sure.
TikTok, but there's so much to be gained from the possibility of being on that platform. So
Yeah.
I'll be making more content for TikTok and some material for YouTube as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Look up on Insight Timer, right? Like
Yes,
what I use.
absolutely. You can look me up on Insight Timer. It's the number one free app
Yeah.
for sleep, anxiety, and stress. There's many apps out there, but the scope of what they provide is just astounding.
Yes.
So I've got one up there now, but there will be many more coming your way, and they
Nice.
will all each track will have a different theme.
Yes.
There's lots to be excited about in that
Yeah.
sense.
Oh, yeah. That's awesome. Well, we could probably talk for another hour. A couple of chatterbox coaches like us, we could really be on here all day. But I so appreciate you having on. Thank you so much. And, I'm going to let everybody else off. I'll have you stick around just for a second as we let everybody else off. And everybody that's listening right now, look up Nicole, go find her, get her guided meditation. It's so awesome. Look
Thank
her up on
you.
social, follow her. Oh, and of course, if you like this episode, let's get you subscribed. Let's go ahead and click the like button, get the notifications, share it, whatever you want to do on all media. It will be downloaded as of tomorrow morning. We'll go ahead and get it out on iTunes. We're going to get it out on Spotify as well. And then, of course, all the videos will be on all the video platforms. Thank you so much, Nicole. Thank you for being on, and thank you for listening to the Provoke Coach podcast.
Thank you, Clinton. Thank you. Thank you.